In 1991, Bill Murray was driving Richard Dreyfuss insane, both in front of and behind the camera, in order to give us the comedy classic that is, What About Bob? Murray plays a mental patient called Bob Wiley, who gets paired up with a not-so-understanding and self-adoring psychotherapist called Dr. Leo Marvin, played by Dreyfuss. However, Marvin's life is about to be turned upside down, where while on a family vacation, Bob tracks him down and brings his wild, out-of-control mayhem with him. In this endearing comedy that delivers on the laughs while also exploring the complexities of mental health difficulties. A subject that comedy cinema doesn't usually tap into. So, welcome to What About Bob? The movie of which its behind-the-scenes show that not only is Bill Murray a very funny man, but also very scary. Yep, Bill Murray is such a force not to mess with. I bet the Bill Murray action figures come complete with a power kick of doom. Just like Bob the Goon. So, 10 things, let's check it out. Oh, and by the way, some people in the comments section have been commenting, saying that my sunglasses are way too big, and like, why are Sonny's too big? I think you're right. Is that better?
I'm sailing! I'm sailing! I'm sailing! I sail now?
Keep sailing, Bob.
Number 10. It could have been a Woody Allen vehicle. The story of What About Bob was conceived by Pretty Woman producer Laura Ziskin and her later-to-be husband, Alan Sargent, both of whom incidentally would go on to work on the Spider-Man movies. The script for What About Bob was written by Tom Schulman, who previously wrote the screenplays for Honey, I Shrunk the Kids and Dead Poets Society, both being big hits and both being distributed by Disney, be that their sub-company, Buena Vista Pictures. So naturally the studio picked up the What About Bob script. And if you can believe it, the studio was originally trying to get Woody Allen involved in the movie, for him to not only star as Dr. Marvin, but also potentially work on the movie's screenplay and direct the picture too. Like, they really wanted him to put his stamp on What About Bob, but Allen declined, as he wanted to direct movies that were entirely his creations, not someone else's, and thus he also turned down starring in the movie too. So Happy Days creator and Beaches and Pretty Woman director Gary Marshall was then being pursued to be the director, but that didn't end up happening. So Miss Piggy and Yoda performer Frank Oz stood up to the challenge and became the director of What About Bob. He was breaking out as a director at that time, having previously directed The Muppets Take Manhattan, The Little Shop of Horrors, and Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. Number 9. The movie was then going to star Robin Williams. So it's here we get to the interesting character of Bob Wiley, the person at the heart of the movie's chaos. Well, originally Robin Williams was hired to play the role, which, yeah, I can totally see that working. And he was a big name at that time, having just been nominated for an Oscar for his performance in the, as mentioned, Dead Poets Society. However, when the movie's shoot for What About Bob was to start, Williams still would have been filming the Terry Gilliam movie, The Fisher King, so Williams was no longer an option. According to GeekTyrant.com, other potential Bobs include Eddie Murphy and Steve Martin. And according to Wikipedia, Patrick Stewart was also considered to play Dr. Marvin, and that Frank Oz really wanted him, as well as other big names being thrown around like Chevy Chase, James Caan, and Kevin Kline. Till finally, Bill Murray was cast as Bob, and Richard Dreyfuss was cast as Dr. Marvin. Two well-respected actors of their time. Although part of me hopes that there is a parallel universe where Robin Williams and Patrick Stewart star in What About Bob? Oh wait, Steve, yeah. take these away, please. But take it easy! Don't forget, those sunnies are a Louis Vuitton. You can't get the staff. Number 8. Bill Murray and Richard Dreyfuss got along infamously. It's really no secret that What About Bob's two main stars, Bill Murray and Richard Dreyfuss, really did not get along during the filming, and that there was a lot of tension on the set of this movie. No doubt making it an unpleasant experience for all involved, with both Murray and Dreyfuss revealing in later years that they really did not like each other. Now, Bill Murray has something of a reputation of not being the easiest guy to get along with. Let's not forget that this is the guy who supposedly, when Dan Aykroyd sent him a script for a potential Ghostbusters 3, shredded the script and then sent the shredded remains back to him. And picked up Seth Green by the ankles when he was a kid and dropped him in a bin. Stop it! I'm not laughing, you're laughing. Murray admitted that he drove Dreyfuss nuts and that he deliberately did this and felt that it actually helps and benefits the movie, as Bob and Dr. Marvin's relationship is meant to be prickly, with the character of Dr. Marvin constantly at his wit's end with Bob. Dreyfuss admitted that What About Bob is a funny movie, and that Bill Murray is a very funny guy, but also added that the making of the movie was, quote, a terribly unpleasant experience, on the account that he and Bill didn't get along. Director Frank Oz also chimed in on the situation, saying, quote, I was just trying to get the best out of both of them. Richard is a very structured person, and I'm not that structured, and Bill is very unstructured. So you have that opposite going on. Unquote. He also claimed that everyone had their own viewpoint with how to make the movie and script better, and that with everyone on set having their own ideas of what exactly What About Bob is, led to a lot of tension. Oz, like some kind of cheeky evil genius, also added that in a perverse way, he was happy with the tension between Murray and Dreyfuss, as the conflict works within the movie itself. However, this isn't the end of the turbulent working relationship between Bill Murray and Richard Dreyfuss. Nope, far from it. Number 7. Then Bill Murray threw a glass ashtray at Richard Dreyfuss's head. Okay, the tension and conflict on set seemed to really reach boiling point, where according to Dreyfuss, whenever Bill Murray would drink, he would become, quote, an Irish bully. And during the shoot, one night in particular, Murray was apparently really intoxicated, and Dreyfuss approached him with a tweak that was made to the script, and was proudly showing him, hey, look at this tweak we've made it funnier, where Murray then got in Dreyfuss's face with his nose pressing against Dreyfuss's nose, and basically screamed at Dreyfuss with all his might that everyone hates him, and that they just tolerate him. Murray then got out of Dreyfuss's face and picked up a glass ashtray, which, according to Dreyfuss, weighed 3/4 pounds and threw it at his face. Thankfully, it just missed Dreyfuss and didn't make contact. But damn, had that actually hit him, that could have actually seriously hurt Dreyfuss. And Dreyfuss wisely got his ass out of there and walked out of the situation. And as far as information goes, there is no more news on that particular incident. Like, what happened when Dreyfuss left? Did anyone try and calm Bill Murray down? I have so many questions. Like, did the higher-ups in the production, including the director or producers, know about this? Did someone call the cops, or a lawyer, or a crisis intervention team, or anything? Was Murray spoken to and told that he can't carry on with this conduct? After all, you would think there would be some kind of duty of care towards the cast and crew. I mean, come on, you just can't leave us on a cliffhanger like this. What happened from there? But if you can believe it, we're still not done talking about the out-of-control antics of Bill Murray. Number 6. Then Bill Murray threw a producer in a lake. One of What About Bob's producers, Laura Ziskin, claims that she had her own run-in with Bill Murray, where after some kind of altercation, he threw her into a lake? Yeah, apparently he threw her into a lake. And on another occasion, he threatened to throw her across a parking lot. She explains that although he didn't throw her across the parking lot, he did grab her sunglasses and break them and throw them across the parking lot. Needless to say, she wasn't happy, and having dealt with many actors, felt that this was not normal behaviour. According to Richard Dreyfuss's son, the tussle between Ziskin and Murray was all over Murray wanting an extra day off work and was basically told no, so I guess he had some kind of violent hissy fit. Look, I love Bill Murray. Or rather, I love his craft, okay? The man is a comedy genius and legend, and nothing can take that away. And I don't mean for this to be the Let's Bash Bill Murray hour, but that said, I can't be okay with violence. I mean, is this What About Bob? Or what about not beating the shit out of me? Or rather, what about not Bill Murraying me, am I right? I think that when it gets to the stage that you're throwing people around and nearly maiming people with glass ashtrays, you're no longer just a prima donna actor having a tantrum, or an actor with a bit of a bad temper, but rather really out of control and, well, dangerous. There's an irony that you have this movie about a mentally ill guy roaming around the place causing chaos, where in real life the guy who played that character was also out of control and creating so much chaos, and possibly also not being in a good mental state, or at least going through some kind of issue and was equally just as out of control. It's really life imitating art and vice versa. Bill Murray, an actor who I absolutely love watching on screen. And I honestly really do. But maybe not someone I would want to meet in real life. Number 5. The director Frank Oz was worried that he was making a hot mess of a movie. Now, filming was to take place at New Hampshire, but due to delays in the production, when it was time to film What About Bob, the location showed signs of it being autumn, and the movie wasn't set in autumn. So the shoot for What About Bob mainly took place around Smith Mountain Lake in Virginia, with additional scenes being filmed in New York City. Supposedly, Bill Murray was frightened about filming in New York City, although I couldn't find any context as to why he was frightened of filming in New York. It seems director Frank Oz had his own worries and anxieties. During the shoot, it started to dawn on him, this worrying feeling of, what if the movie is no good, saying, quote, "I was really scared to death that we had a piece of shit, because it was so impossible to judge it." In other words, he had no idea how the movie would turn out, and started to get a creeping feeling that it would be a failure, but he was relieved when it wasn't. Then again, the making of this movie sounds so chaotic and turbulent, you really can't blame the guy for thinking, just what on earth is this movie that they're making? Number 4. Bodyguards were hired on the set to keep the peace. Yep, it seems that some drastic action was needed in order to stop Bill Murray's conflicts and ashtray and producer throwing ways. Going back to Dreyfuss's son, Ben, he claimed that after a while, everyone involved in the film just got fed up with Murray's antics, and they all just took off and flew back to LA. Yeah, they just abandoned the shoot like they were done. No more Bill Murray, we're out of here. Good luck. However, everyone returned to carry on and finish the filming when on-set bodyguards were hired by Disney, who were there to keep Murray in check and to make sure that no more glass ashtrays were thrown. Apparently, the main thing the guards had to do was to keep Murray and Dreyfuss apart, and if things ever got heated between the two actors, the guards would then have to separate them. So, yeah, it's quite telling that things got so bad on set, bodyguards had to be hired. Once again, I love Bill Murray, but how much of a pain in the backside do you have to be to cause an entire movie production to flee the state and only return and resume filming when bodyguards are hired? Oh god. I swear the story of making this movie could have been its own outrageous comedy, and maybe one day it will be. Number 3. What About Bob would lead Richard Dreyfuss to sue Disney? Yay, more conflict. Yep, just when you think the tensions surrounding What About Bob couldn't get any worse, the movie would result in a lawsuit filed by Richard Dreyfuss. And nope, not because of Bill Murray's flying ashtray antics, but rather because he felt that he was being denied certain finances. Hey, I guess at least this time Bill Murray's not in the picture. According to Mental Floss, in 2015, Dreyfuss filed a lawsuit against Disney because the company wouldn't allow him to hire an auditor and examine the company's bookkeeping to see if he was owed finances in regards to What About Bob. And to make matters worse, Disney had a 3-year waiting list for auditors to look into their properties. Yeah, look, all this Lego mumbo-jumbo is kind of confusing to me. I can pretend to make it sound like I know what I'm talking about, but when it comes to crap like this, I'm a complete dumbass. It's basically about all participants getting profits evenly and fairly. Although, according to Google, Richard Dreyfuss is worth about $5 million, so that should be able to pay for several cans of glass ashtray repellent spray. Okay, seriously, was anyone who was attached to this movie actually happy that they were a part of it? Like, did anyone finish the shoot completely happy and content? Or was absolutely everyone just really angry and pissed off? Number 2, burying the hatchet, or rather glass ashtray. It is said that both Richard Dreyfuss and Bill Murray have not crossed paths since making What About Bob, but both men have since spoken about their time working on the movie and the conflict they had with one another, and both have even praised the movie. And according to some sources, it's supposedly both actors' favourite film roles that they played, or be that at least one of them. Dreyfuss admitted that although making the movie was a horrible experience, he still finds it to be a really funny movie, and admitted that although he doesn't like Bill Murray, he still makes him laugh, adding some playful banter that he's also jealous that Murray is a better golfer. Murray also gave praises to the movie, adding that everyone knows someone like Bob, and admitting that his and Dreyfuss's conflict really works in the movie's favour, as it displays itself perfectly on film. In 2014, Murray would tell Howard Stern that he tries to make the other actors that he works with look good wherever he can, further adding that in What About Bob's case, the way of achieving this was by annoying the ever-living crap out of Richard Dreyfuss. And Murray even admitted that he enjoyed annoying Dreyfuss, but he concluded that he didn't try to annoy him off the screen. So could it be that Murray is just a method actor, and that he was just trying to create a tense atmosphere between him and Dreyfuss, like some kind of evil genius? After all, there are some parts of the movie where Dreyfuss looks like he's genuinely on the edge, and ready to break and snap at any moment. So was all this part of Bill Murray's grand design to make a better movie? Well, maybe. But I think it also might be possible that Murray was going through some kind of shit at that time, and probably wasn't the easiest to get along with in general, as also in the early 90s, Murray starred in fellow comedies Quick Change and Groundhog Day, 2 movies that have not so great behind the scenes stories regarding Murray's behaviour, which would lead to conflicts with co-workers on those movies, particularly Geena Davis and Harold Ramis. Regardless, in a 2020 interview, Dreyfuss said that he forgave Murray for what happened when making What About Bob. And when hearing the two men talk about each other, I can't help but feel like there is at least a certain level of respect between the two men. Okay, maybe not that much, but still, it's a start. Number 1, was it all worth it? So yeah, given all the drama and conflict that happened behind the scenes, this leaves one question: was it all worth it? Well, apparently yes. Yes, it was, as What About Bob was very successful. It opened up in the number 1 spot in the box office, beating Madonna Truth or Dare. Yep, back in 1991, people would have rather have seen Bill Murray and his crazy wiry hair than being in bed with Madonna. Still probably be the same now, actually. However, What About Bob would eventually get beaten by Backdraft, but it remained in the top 10 of the box office for 7 weeks, with it going on to nearly make $64 million on a $39 million budget, making it the second highest grossing live-action Disney movie of 1991, behind Father of the Bride, and the 19th highest grossing movie of that year. What About Bob also got good reviews too. Murray in particular got praised for his performance, with some finding this to be his best performance since Ghostbusters. And Leonard Maltin added that he felt Murray and Dreyfuss had a Wile E. Coyote and Roadrunner dynamic. However, Gene Siskel felt that Dreyfuss was just too angry in the movie. Yeah. When you know what was happening while the movie was being made, that makes perfect sense. And in a cruel twist for Dreyfuss, he praised just how fun and enjoyable Murray was, basically saying Bill Murray was lots of fun and Dreyfuss was an angry bore. Well, of course Bill Murray was lots of fun. He was the only one who, while making that movie, didn't have to endure his own crap. As for Richard Dreyfuss's criticisms here, yeah, ouch. I mean, I'm telling you, you get a glass ashtray thrown at you and you still get criticised. What About Bob has since gone on to be considered a cult classic, and often makes it to lists of funniest movies of all time. And a really interesting accolade is the character Bob Wiley was added to Slant Magazine's 15 famous movie Psychopaths. I can remember seeing What About Bob for the first time when I was a kid. I saw it on a TV broadcast when on holiday with my family. Ironically, a holiday by a lake. And throughout the 90s, the movie would frequently be shown on TV here. So it was a common, popular movie from my childhood that I did really enjoy. Now, one thing I've learned since making these videos is quite often some of the most famous and most well-loved movies would often have really troubled productions, complete turmoil and chaos behind the scenes. And sometimes learning of such things is disappointing, especially if it's a movie that you've loved from your childhood. I think we all want to imagine that it was all wine and roses behind the scenes and that everyone was just having a great time. But life is never that easy. And well, people are complicated. So all said and done, as far as what is presented on screen, What About Bob is a great movie. Genuinely funny moments with memorable, thought-provoking characters. And nothing can take that away. And despite the conflict behind the cameras, it is still a really endearing movie. And so, as the general public increasingly learns more about the troubled background of certain movies, this one in particular will leave you asking, what about Bob? Needless to say, if What About Bob was made now, I think there would have been a very different outcome. I mean, all of the conflict that happened during the making of this movie would be all over social media, as well as people getting cancelled and possible lawsuits, with the general public taking sides and probably more than likely throwing their personal politics into it because that's what people do now. Heck, just look at that recent movie, It Ends With Us. Regardless, What About Bob is a brilliant movie. And maybe it was the conflict that did make it a brilliant movie. Maybe it's behind the scenes tension between the two main stars actually really did flourish the on-screen tension. So, does that justify what happened behind the scenes? Well, it's not really for me to say. Regardless, I'm Minty, and I love Bill Murray. Just maybe keep him away from the glass ashtrays, if you know what I'm saying. See ya!